Hey, welcome back to another episode of Compliance Clips with your co-hosts, Rick Morgan and John Farquhar. Today, we've got the one and only, world famous, wealthiest man in the county of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, maybe, Doug Marcello. And today we're going to talk about a topic that, well, Doug is not afraid to talk about, and it's got something to do with hell or something like that, or is it heaven? I'm not sure, but we'll kind of let Doug get into telling us a little bit about it. So, Doug, why don't we start off with, for our viewers, give us an introduction, who you are, and what you're known for, and what it is you do.
Yeah, John, let me clear up the misconceptions you just presented about me. Doug Marcello, I'm a trucking defense attorney, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. That part of John's was correct. I have a CDL. We are better with me in a courtroom than driving behind the wheel. And I've had cases in 36 states right now and one province. So there you go.
Perfect. So you've had some Canadian exposure then.
I have.
Awesome. Awesome. So, well, Mr. Morgan, what kind of topic are we going to get into here? You know, heaven and hell, or what's coming back, or is something going to freeze over, baby?
No, we're not talking where you're going next week, John.
Oh, okay, darn it.
But there is this annual publication put out by a group of lawyers in the U.S. called Jurisdictional Hellholes. And Mr. Marcello frequently speaks to this because it's kind of a list of reverse Santa Claus. This is where you probably don't want to drive, and you definitely don't want to have an accident because it gets kind of warm. And at the same time, we had the issue recently published by the ATRI on just exactly what is happening in the legal issues across the lawsuits and how it's affecting carriers. And Doug was quoted in that and contributed towards it. So we've got a beautiful meshing of where you can get sued very quickly and cost a lot, and a gentleman who's an expert on the topic. So we've invited Doug along today to share a little bit about the updates to the jurisdictional hellholes.
Great to be here, Rick. Thank you very much.
Well, and this is something not only good for anybody that's traveling in the U.S., but this is also something that's utilized by insurance providers, so that when they're costing out and running their pricing models, they're using this jurisdictional hellhole to decide, how much travel are you doing in that area and how much more money do I need to charge you?
John, I had a client who their insurance went up exponentially this year. And so I have an insurance company I do work for, and I thought, great insurance company. And I thought, gee, this would be a great match. And so I connected the two, went to the client, and the client said, we run more than 10% of our loads up to the New York City area. They wouldn't write us on that. Now I'm talking maybe 15, 20 most percent at the max, but you're absolutely right. It's being viewed that way. What we're looking at is a number of years ago when the first ATRI study came out on nuclear verdicts. I did a video with a number of folks because it was during COVID, and we did that for the ATA safety instead of being able to get together. And one of the first people I spoke to is the president, COO of ATRI, Rebecca Brewster. And her comment from that study, one of the initial comments was, it's a lot like real estate, these nuclear verdicts, location, location, location. And that's what we're seeing based on that. ATRA, the American Tort Reform Association, not to be confused with ATRI, the American Trucking Research Institute, the acronyms flying around. But the hellhole list comes out December every year. And they list the top jurisdictions in terms of that are most problematic in terms of verdicts, in terms of the issues, in terms of the courts, those type of things. For a number of years, Philadelphia, not only Super Bowl winner, but #1 hellhole on that. But this year it changed. Los Angeles has taken the title. World Series, who we point out bought the series, and they're paying $169 million tax for having spent over the salary cap or the salary limit. But Los Angeles is number one, New York's number two. Number three is the South Carolina asbestos litigations. That really doesn't deal with us. Number four is Louisiana's coastal litigation. Again, not quite us. But we're coming back to brotherly love with number five, which is Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. St. Louis is next at number six, Cook County. They added Madison and St. Clair counties now in Illinois, is number seven, and they rounded up by King County, Seattle on that. And Cook County, of course, is Chicago. So those are the locations on that. And John, getting back to your initial point, yeah, you're exactly correct. Running in those areas is risk in and of itself. I've got cases in New York City that are barely sideswipes. And the next thing you know, not only the people getting surgery and, the traditional neck and low back, they're getting rotator cuff surgery and they're getting ACL surgery on these things.
Wow.
And I'm talking one I had, impacts of, minimal amounts of speed, minimal. And that's where we're going on this now. It has just really become out of hand on it. We have talked about, and the discussion is generally about tort reform. Let's legislate our way into that. Political realities of our red-blue divide here in the United States is that even in the red states, the conservative states, states that have a conservative governor, conservative Senate, conservative House, and enough to be veto-proof, they can't get it done for the most part, or what they can get done is limited by the trial lawyers. We had a gentleman years ago in the 60s who said that money is the mother milk of politics, and tort reform proves that very well. And so that's what we're having. So what we got to look is the alternatives on it. Not just, it'd be great to get tort reform, even if we get something legislatively. The judicial elections, those are funded by the billboard attorneys very often, tens of millions of dollars. So they can then undo what the legislature hath wrought. So, I think we have to, take a look at, what we can do, companies can do themselves to toughen up and put their defenses up.
And I think that's a really valid point, and a question that is coming to the forefront more and more often, is what can you do when you're exposed to an environment such as this? And I mean, just Doug, perhaps you can expand a little bit on how the approach towards expanding the liability of the carriers is making it progressively more difficult for the carriers to have an effective risk management approach to what we've traditionally looked at as our supporting materials, our company policies and all of the documentation and training that we're putting together. It seems like from what we're seeing, the smallest little opening or gap that shows that you're not 100% in alignment with a statement leaves the plaintiff's lawyer an opening for a nuclear verdict.
Yeah, the nuclear verdicts, Rick, rarely come from the accidents themselves. And people can understand that drivers are human, except in the most egregious circumstances. And we've seen some recently, but mostly it's not the accidents we see. It's from some, what the allegations are, systemic failures that the company has over time failed to do what it should do, failed to tighten things up. As a result of that, it is systemically unsafe. The target's not the company. In fact, in one of the biggest verdicts we had in the States, they made the driver out to be the victim of the company's failed policies. What they're looking at is, number one, what the policies are and have you lived up to them. Now, the problem we have is too many times is that companies think that they have defense by policy, that they have, they put these platitudes in their manuals and safety's our number one priority, nothing second to safety. There was a company that put out a press release that said safety's our number one priority. To me, that's the ultimate disingenuousness. That company was OceanGate. the folks that took that septic tank down to the Titanic, and didn't have any Coast Guard or minimal Coast Guard approval or whatever the approval necessary is. A policy, a manual is a book. It's paper, bound or 3-ring or whatever. The policy and procedure should basically set expectations and tell how to pursue them, period. Because what will happen is if you don't live up to that, the billboard attorneys will say you haven't met the standard of care, and the standard of care, well, that's defined by the company in its own manual. If it put it in the manual, it must be the standard of care. So what you need to do is to look, what do we really need to convey? And then how can we convey it? I sit in depositions all the time where the driver is this your signature? Yes, it is. And you signed to indicate that you got the manual? Yes, I did. Did you get the manual? Yes, I did. Did you read the manual? Well, I was like, how many of us read manuals to our car or anything like that? Yet we give drivers a basically, and no offense, but they are not a workforce that generally is geared towards reading. Nor is our society nowadays. So we need to look at how can we convey this information so that it's actually absorbed and effective. We live in a YouTube society. YouTube, TikTok, get the message across there. There is at medical schools, they're now using graphic novel techniques for the humanities. They found that documents are often more consumed by that than they are just blocks of prose on that. So I think that's where we come with the manuals on it, Rick. In terms of make it efficient, make it pointed. I often use the example of a company in the Midwest that has 6 principles, a lot like the Smith system, +1. And they say if you follow those 6 principles, you have met our expectations. The minimalist approach, to the extent you can do it, is great. I often think it would be a great exercise either for us to do at a conference or at least for a company to do themselves. If we had to limit our perspective to 5 or 6 principles, what is it we stand for? And those discussions, I would start at the top with the C folks, because at the end of the day, they're the ones set the tone for the culture. And if they don't support it, if they let operations or recruiting or sales run over them, then it's meaningless. In fact, you're worse off than what you had before.
I've actually seen some companies, and I guess let's put them as good or best practice operations, who are taking their policy and turning it into training modules throughout the year. Doing virtual meetings with drivers, adding a policy and dissecting it in their newsletters, sharing it out as safety bulletins and stuff like that to help share that information of those documents that, as you say, drivers are probably not reading. I'm more inclined to go, get me in the truck, let me turn the key and get going, because that's how I'm making my money. I'm not making my money by reading this 30, 40, 50 page manual that you've given me.
It's like the car manual I used example before. It's there in case we need to know the procedure too. What do I do with my load bar? What do I do with, as opposed to sit down and read these rules and go for it. Now let me throw something else out there. And this is a presentation I'm working on, and I've presented it a couple times for 2026. And that is to harness the power and ability of AI as a foundation for our defense. And here's where I'm coming from. When we get into trial of these things, the plaintiff attorneys will bring in an expert, billboard guys. They'll bring in an expert who goes around the country and testifies at all these trials, and there's a handful of them. And they'll say the trucking company didn't meet the standard of care in hiring, training, supervision, the tripartite attacks they do. And our response right now is we bring in somebody, both of which pretty much look like the 3 of us who have been seasoned people in trucking, and they bring in their person and go, well, I've been in here 40 years, and I think they have met the standard of care. So what we're doing is meeting subjective criticism with subjective argument. And we've got 12 people who the closest they've ever got to a truck is when they stop too close, at the traffic light. And they've got to decide who, and it really comes down to which of those two experts is a better salesperson, more persuasive, Why don't we flip the script? And that's harness the data-driven abilities of AI to create and show that we have objective evidence of meeting the standard of care, not just somebody's opinion who hangs it on a hat of being around for years at a time. So that if we use AI-driven hiring practices, what is our experience in terms of accidents, retention, et cetera, and let AI analyze the applications for that? Hey, John, what got me on this tangent was AI training. Not just to say, here's a training module, check off the box, but to let AI analyze and say, what are this person's needs? Here are the modules they should have for those needs. And here's the demonstration both of testing as well as back on the road that they've accomplished this. So we can say, hey, there's no deficiency in training. Here it is. And then ultimately supervision. Loose the lightning of AI on people out on the road and say, look, these are the things that you need to correct and do and live by. Toughest thing in that whole equation is being willing to live up to it, because we need drivers, and each of those means you got to protect yourself by not allowing the transgressions. The example I always use is, I know you need drivers to get that load, pick up the loads that you have and that sales is out there selling. But here's the deal. How many of those loads for what, $1,200, $1,500, $2,000? How many of those loads are you going to have to haul because of the one bad driver that you had haul that $1,500, $2,000 load? And that's where it comes down to. And I think the last thing here is, in what I talked about last year, 2025, is that safety is the greatest area potential profit for the trucking companies that are out there. ATRI's numbers last year with most companies, not LTLs, but most of the rest of them had a 1% margin. If we can, and in a world of deductibles and retentions out there, that is profit that's being recaptured by reducing risk and increasing safety. And each of our departments are generally incentivized against that. Sales is incentivized to get loads regardless of where they run into the hellholes. Recruiting's incentivized to put drivers in the seat regardless of their background, to within reason. Operations, get it there. Just get it there. And maintenance to keep it running whether or not the safety equipment works. We have got to re-incentivize internally for efficiency and avoid the loss, the catastrophic loss that can be existential to the company and can shut it down.
If I can just pick up on one of your earlier comments, and one of the aspects that was highlighted in the both publications we're speaking to here, you mentioned the standard of care. And for many of us, for many years, the standard of care was, if we're talking about U.S. operations 49 CFR, if it's stated in there, that's a standard. This is what you have to abide by. So, but what I was reading in these documentations is the lawyers for the plaintiffs are saying that's the minimum. That's not the industry standard. And it's this industry standard, and what you're speaking to in addressing that industry standard now because of AI. But could you just explain to those in the audience who may not have read the materials and haven't quite identified that if you're just doing what's in the 49 CFR, you're still leaving yourself open?
Yeah, what you've got, you're exactly right, Rick. What you've got is we've got the 49 CFR, the regulations. And in the United States courts, what it is there is something, the issue is ultimately negligence.
Yep.
If I violate a regulation, it is negligence per se. When we look at the ATRI study, the largest verdicts were ones in which were violations of the regulations. on it, hours of service, fatigue, cell phone use. Those all generated from the study the largest verdicts on it. But what the plaintiff attorneys are coming in is they've got people, these experts, so-called experts, and most of those folks, John and Rick, are folks like you who were in the industry, but within a year or so, they either washed out or decided to sell their soul and thought it was easier just to go out and criticize folks than it is to do the job day in, day out.
John,
like
did
you
he
guys
read your
do.
resume?
So what they're doing is going out and criticizing, and they're creating a bar high above the standards on it. Now, whether that's fair or not, that's what we got to deal with. And I have my questions on that. But that's what I'm saying is, they create this high standard and then go out and sell it to a jury. And that's where a lot of these potentials are coming out on it, whether it's realistic or not. And what we need to do is to debunk these myths of the standard of care, and not just subjectively, but I think objectively on it, to show that there is not a correlation between these systemic failures that they're claiming and the reality of actual accidents that are out there, or severe accidents that are out there. And that's what we need to do.
Well, if I can, because by now we've hopefully got some attention from some of our listeners. The concept of anchoring, because everyone's, some people are probably going to go out, they're going to look at the jurisdictional hellhole and say, oh, I'm not going through there, so I don't have to worry about this. Could you explain just exactly what anchoring is and how that might indicate that particular approach to risk management has its own opening?
Yeah, and great question, Rick. Because we look at, and it's easy for us to say, well, Los Angeles, New York, boom, boom, down the list. It go down it vertically. But I think the key is to look horizontally. What are the attributes that we see in these jurisdictions that are often the detonators for the nuclear verdicts? Anchoring is one of them. Anchoring is when an attorney comes in and says, I think that you should give my client 10, 20, $100 million. They want to anchor their case on that number. And that's what they need to do. And that's what they want to do. Now, in Pennsylvania, where I'm based at, there is no anchoring. You can't state a number. But then they try to get around that by various other backdoor mechanisms, such as, and the ATRI study talked about referring to the millions of dollars that athletes get and those type of things. And it all is tied into, whether it's anchoring or not, the impact of what is called social inflation. That people are being desensitized to big numbers because they're seeing it everywhere else in the world. What athletes get for their athletic ability, the hundreds of millions of dollars. What performers get for their artistic ability. What the Kardashians get for whatever the heck they do. So it is just, they hear these big numbers, and that's the context that they put it in.
Financing lawsuits against trucking companies is actually a business model, if I understand correctly.
Unfortunately, you got it right. Yeah.
So there's players out there that exist for no reason other than to invest in a lawsuit against a trucking company to make a return.
Bingo. And there's in multiple phases on that. So, there are companies that will front money to plaintiff attorneys as their cash flow while they're doing the case. They then are requiring a return on investment on the back end. There's another type of litigation funding where they are providing loans to the people who are filing the suit while they're out of work and while they're going through this. The problem is these are what are called non-recourse loans. And because of that, the regular interest rate rules don't apply. they'll give them a loan if there's no recovery. They don't have to pay it back. Well, because they're non-recourse, that interest just mounts up. And ATRI has done a number of studies on that itself. Sad commentary on my life. I had a case up near your way, up your direction, Watertown, New York, a number of years ago. The person had taken out one of those loans. I won the case. So the folks who loaned him, fronted him the money, got stiffed. But that's out there in play. Then we've got folks out there fronting money on medical bills, almost like how we would, or folks in trucking would, factor bills. And they're saying, look, I'll give you, doctor, so many cents on the dollar, you sell me your bills. Then they control the amount of recovery of those bills at the time the lawsuit is being negotiated or ultimately tried. So there is a lot of money coming in. Article a couple weeks ago was interesting. Their question got raised. They said that there was a decrease in the amount of funding coming into this area. And I'm keeping an eye on whether that trend is something we're going to see changing. A number of reasons. The folks that do this, it's all about money. It's just pure money. One of the things was in the American so-called big beautiful bill. That's what other folks call it, not me. But one of the things in there was to impose a 42% tax on this. Now it got taken out procedurally, not on a vote, but procedurally. Well, it doesn't quite fit into the reconciliation, but I think the guys who are financing are seeing, and the people who are financing are seeing that they're starting to get some pushback on this. And what happens to us in trucking, it probably pales compared to the amount of money going into the IT litigation, patent litigation, technology litigation. And those in particular raise questions of what countries is that money coming from, and what's their ultimate purpose in doing this on top of everything else.
I mean, it strikes me, if you've got the type of dollars we're talking about in the scenario you've got there must be people who are applying to be experts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is generating a business model or a business opportunity for individuals who are willing to drive around the country and put forth their credentials as experts in order to help the plaintiffs win, and for no reason other than that. Am I following this train of thought correctly?
Yeah, let me just correct you on one thing. They don't drive around the country, Rick. They fly around first class.
Ironically, you and I were talking about the cost of upgrading in the beginning before we started recording, and said we couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
But there's enough money to fly first class if you're doing this. Okay, John, it is, I got to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it is a substantial industry on that in terms of them going around what they're doing and the prices they're charging on that.
So this is the environment our carriers are facing.
It is.
What are we going to do about it? What can our carriers realistically do to protect themselves?
Number one, like I said, disincentivize the other operations in your company from ignoring risk or not being risk conscious and safety conscious. Number two, make sure that you have an insurance carrier who's going to work with you and protect you from the get-go, work with you before the suit, respond to the suit immediately, because that is the key, the crucial hours there. With regard to these venues, what I have done in Pennsylvania a number of times, and I believe it would work in a number, if not all other states, is to be aggressive. And if we have an argument that we are not at fault, and we've suffered damages, to sue first, so that we can have the case in the more rural conservative venue, and not be dragged into a hellhole. Generally, if a trucking company does business in a location, it can be sued. Well, guess what? We do business everywhere. So that's one of the other things. I think look in terms of creating an AI-driven system of hiring, training, supervision, so that you can confront these high-paid, first-class flying experts with objective evidence as opposed to their general it's beyond the standard of care that they have. One expert, I get a report from them, and it's just a matter of change a couple lines on the word processor. But the general gist of it is there's no such thing of an accident other than an act of God. Everything else must be at fault. Well, that's what we're dealing with in this, and that's the mentality they start, because it doesn't do any good for them to say that it's below the standard of care from a business perspective.
So, John, I kind of jumped all over Doug for a bit there. Do you have any questions from your side you'd like to put?
Well, it's not in the highlight of where we've gone here, but I want to kind of go back to the beginning when you started talking about the types of incidents that are creating these, large verdicts, and they're not always necessarily about the crash itself, but the procedural aspect or the complementary items on the plate that are having something to do with it. And what I'm wondering is, how much is technology, telematics, getting involved in this process? And where I want to drive this for a second is, everybody's using telematics today. We've got it through our ELD programs, our dash cameras and stuff like that. But I'm actually seeing some providers out there. It's not prevalent yet, but I'm seeing some where they're able to capture the information, measure the data that's in there to determine possible bodily injuries, and utilizing G-force measurement of the vehicle in collision with another vehicle and whatnot to be able to determine the types of bodily injury crashes that could come out of this, or to be able to, within a shadow of a doubt, say, yeah, there's no way you could have got that type of injury based on this. Are you seeing any of that? Is this starting to show up at all? Is this something that's, coming down the pipe a little bit?
Yeah, and going across the range, the telematics are a key part in terms of whether or not there's a systemic failure there or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of that comes in. Too many companies, and unfortunately, much of it's been at the misadvice of my brethren in trucking defense, have said, well, you're better off not knowing on it,
Yeah.
and it's what I call it, because if you know or you curate that, then you have to turn it over to discovery. And it's what I call the discovery fallacy. Because I monitor the websites, the programs, the conferences of the billboard attorneys, and guess what? They know what we have, and they give conferences on how to get it and use it against us. We're drinking from a fire hose,
right,
on the data. It used to be we were a mechanical device that hauls freight. Now we are a technological device that hauls freight. I think there are 4 keys to it. Number 1, know what you have. Sounds obvious, but many companies don't until after the accident. When we come out, my experts come out and start to look at it, what's on their OEM. Number 2, analyze what relates to accidents. Not all that data is going to be key. If you're running I-80 in the Midwest, it's probably going to be overspeed. If you're running the GW, it's probably going to be hard brakes. So, once you analyze it, then monitor. What are your drivers doing in that regard? And then the last one's the toughest one: discipline. We hear people, and there's a debate whether or not there's a driver shortage. We've got by estimates, about 150,000 drivers who lack English proficiency in the States on that. We've got another 200 to 300,000 that are looking at the visa issue and perhaps running afoul of that. And in the meantime, we've got almost 1/3 who have tested positive. And of those, I think that only about 180,000 have come back through the SAP program. So we have 200,000 on that. So that's where a lot of that is, on the data aspect of it, from where we are, John, on it. But I think, what we could, and you talk about the companies that are talking about that, the accelerometers, I think, are great, because generally, absent that, what I've got to do is, and what I do is I hire a biomechanical expert, somebody who has a background in engineering and medicine. They'll take a look at the damage. They'll use tests that have been done to equate that damage to what force is involved. Then they'll relate that force to, is it enough through medical testing to show it could have caused the injury here? rotator cuff, torn knee, but and go through and do that. The accelerometer takes us to point B in that analysis. We don't have to figure based upon the deformation how much force it would have taken. The accelerometer tells us what were the forces involved on that, so we then can apply the medical diagnosis to it. And many times in the minor accidents, the experts will go, you get more force stepping off a curb than you do the impact of that engine. So that's one of the key things there. Particularly, like I was saying, in cases like in New York, where a minor accident, they try to equate it for, rotator cuff, cervical herniation, lumbar herniation, torn rotator cuff, or torn ACL. Those are the type of analysis we need, and that's where the accelerometer and that data can really come in handy.
Well, because it can definitely help to deter, large payouts on that when, hang on, that's not even part of this. And maybe that injury they're having, maybe they do have the surgery, was due to some other incident prior to, playing baseball or basketball or whatever. And they're trying to go, I want to get it compensated and I want to be paid for it somehow. So, I know earlier this year, I wrote my my exam for my brokerage license. And I can't say enough about it's one of the stresses that talks about in that knowledge gathering that I got was insurance is there to make you whole again, not make you better. And I think too many people go, just to make some money here. Oh, I can't get the lottery. I can get it through insurance, and the only way you're going to do that is fraudulently.
It's what I call the casinofication of litigation.
Oh, I love that term.
I pronounce that very carefully, John. That can go off the rails. I just last week I'm driving through a city and I see a billboard up there, just as crass as you can be. Want money? It had a picture of an attorney up there. I see billboards in other locations that so and so got me $500,000.
Yeah, see that all the time.
Compensated, nothing about justice in the whole thing. It is just amount of a cash grab on it. That. And those who are injured, all of us wish that they would get fully compensated for what they suffered. None of us want to chintz those folks. But it's the ones where, are trying to make a gain off that or trying to make money. Those are the ones that we have a problem with on that. And there's a whole, people are fighting back. New York, there's a number of RICO actions up there. There's one in Philadelphia now, challenging the methodology and challenging the veracity of some of these ongoing claims that these folks are doing. Not just attorneys, but a lot of it focuses on the medical on it, and whether or not the medical opinions are legitimate or or they're just law firm specific or case specific on that.
Right. Wow. So you say.
Okay, so this has been some fantastic conversations as always. I can't thank you enough, Doug. I know that you encourage and offer people to reach out to you and get some information and join on. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to just share that with our audience before we go. I have referred more than one client to you, so I give you the opportunity to share if you'd like.
That'd be great, Rick. Yeah, anybody can reach out to me. The easiest is always to get me on LinkedIn, Doug Marcello, one word. Connect with me on there. Email me at DBM, Douglas B. Marcello, DBM at saxtonstump.com. Newsletter goes out every Thursday. Will not go out this Thursday or next Thursday due to the holidays, but feel free to jump on, sign on for the newsletter list, and then ongoing podcast and videos, YouTube channel, and on Apple Podcasts. It's under the name of Transport Center. So again, whatever I can do and any questions, please, folks, feel free to reach out to me on that.
Well, and I love it because I'm a subscriber to all of that. And I'll tell you what, it's such free information and valuable information. It's like, why wouldn't you sign up for this?
Yeah, and I'll pick up on that. John and I know we both get those communications, and one of the first things we do is we share. We repost it. So if you haven't managed to connect with Doug yet, but you're following us, you're going to see it soon.
Absolutely. Now, the key is to get the word out there.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. Let's forewarn. Let's do what we can. And I think that's the biggest thing. The industry's been great to me. Whatever I can do to give back to it, I've
Sure.
been very blessed. So thank you.
Oh, we appreciate that.
Knowledge is power.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Big time.
All right. Thank you very much. Till next
Thanks,
time.
Doug.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. We hope you found today's materials to be useful and you can put them to work. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. And if you've got questions from today's material, or maybe you're just looking to improve your safety and compliance game, please feel free to reach out to either me or John. And remember, you can't manage what you don't monitor. The key to compliant profitability is just one phone call away. So until next time, put the phone down while you drive and keep your eyes on the prize.